What's up? This is Josh. Welcome to my workshop, now snake-proof and air-conditioned. This is my custom CNC. I designed it from scratch because I was too stubborn to use plans. I designed it for simplicity and sturdiness. I used 3/4 inch MDF for everything. The base I actually used 2 sheets of MDF so I could double layer it, make it sturdier, and also have this lip for the sides to sit on. I cut everything out with a circular saw, and I used a drill press, which you could use a regular drill, but it just made it a bit easier. And of course I had some incidental tools. I believe I used a jigsaw on the rounded corners. You really can't do everything with a jigsaw though. You need the straight cuts that you can get from something like a circular saw, and preferably a table saw, but I didn't have that. I made my first cut off of the end of the MDF board because I could use that as the machine edge as a perfect straight edge, which worked really well. This all came together great. I didn't have any trouble putting it together. So these are SBR 12 rails, so they're about half an inch thick for the stainless steel rods. I use these so they'd be fully supported all the way along them. I tried making a machine before using little 8mm unsupported rails, and it did not work. It just wasn't strong enough to hold the spindle. So I completely redesigned it and started over. These are 8mm wide, 8mm lead screws, TR 8x8, and they came with these pillow blocks. These pillow blocks have their own little set screws on them, which are fine for holding the screw in place in horizontal axes, but not in the vertical axes. I actually had this thing drop off before, and I replaced the coupler there with a solid one. You can see on the horizontal ones I've got these springy couplers, but the machine's straight enough that I don't really need that to correct the straightness. Those act as like a universal joint, and I think they're close enough that I don't need to do that. I had to adjust this one a little bit to make that work right and lubricate the lead screw nut, but yeah, that works for the Z-axis there. And you can see I have some 3D printed parts here and there. I used a lot on the top just for looks mainly, but that really helped go that last little bit to finish the machine. I had some of these cut parts sitting around for a while before I bought a 3D printer to do the rest of it. These are NEMA 17 motors. You can see they look a little bit small for this machine, and based on how sturdy it is, I could easily go to NEMA 23s, but that would mean that the electronics I use would be more expensive, and maybe you can see how I have all the electronics fit into this bridge area here. I don't think that would work if I had a bunch of extra stuff for bigger motors. And these seem to work fine for now, so that's great. I have a 12-volt power supply and a 48-volt power supply in this bridge. It's cooled by 2 fans that pull air in, and it comes out the center top there and out of this hole here. And it seems to keep it cool enough. Of course, my shop's air conditioned, so I don't know if it'd work without that. And without air conditioning, I wouldn't have this machine out there because it would just swell. It's MDF. Even though I have it all painted and sealed, I still wouldn't leave it outside without, some humidity control. For the spindle, it has its own speed controller that came with it, but I put it in, but probably shouldn't have. It had no instructions. I didn't realize it would have a 10-volt drop. I bought the 48-volt power supply because this is a 48-volt motor, but it drops to like 38 volts. So I think I can just get rid of the speed controller because the power supply I got actually has its own adjustment, and that's the only thing I'm using it for. So, future upgrade. Speaking of upgrade, I need to do something about these wires. They look pretty ratty. The control is an Arduino Uno with a Protoneer shield, and it's running GRBL, Gerbil. And on my laptop here, I've got Universal G-Code Sender running. That's worked pretty well for me. I haven't tried another one yet because I haven't needed to. Works fine. And I have 1/16 microstepping. And I've used OpenBuilds Cam and Estel Cam to make my G-code. And so far I'm preferring Estel Cam. Seems like OpenBuilds Cam is just so new that it does some weird stuff. Like, it's not very efficient yet, but very promising. And I was thinking about calling this the Pistolero because it looks like a handgun upside down. I love the aesthetics of it. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions about it, leave them in the comments and I'll try and get to them. Thanks.